Ben's entire family is here tonight to help us celebrate and recognize him. Mr. Mike Allen, Ben's son, is going to introduce the Allen family in just a little while and tell us more about his father and his many accomplishments. Everybody in every community needs somebody like Ben. When we first talked to Ben about recognizing all he has done for our community, he humbly said, well, it shouldn't be about me, but about building up the merits of Mountain Empire Community College and the positive impact that the college has had on the community. That's Ben for you. His objective is always to serve others and not bring any attention to himself. We will talk more about Ben later, but now I'd like to call Reverend Terry Goodman, the pastor of the Trinity United Methodist Church, to lead the invocation. Terry?
May we pray? Most gracious God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather in this place tonight to celebrate the life and service of Ben Allen to our community and to our region. We thank you for working through him to bring improvements to our community, and we thank you for the witness he's made to so many. Most of all, we thank you for his and for our resounding faith in you. Please be with us tonight. Let us feel your love in our midst as we celebrate and rejoice. Also, thank you so much for this food that's been prepared, and use it to nourish our bodies. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Well, as we get ready to go to dinner tonight, we have a band, as you can see, and they're going to be playing for us this evening. So we'd like to let the band go first. So band members, you can lead us off in the line. And then we'll let the family go first, Ben's family and Ben and Dottie. You can kind of lead us through after the band. So, and after that, it's dog eat dog, whoever can get there first. Well, folks, it looks like most people are pretty well done with their meal. If you're not, don't worry about it. Just keep eating, get finished, and if you want any more, I'm sure there's some more dessert back there. I'd like to get things started, get our evening festivities on the road. At this time, first, I would like to recognize some special guests. First of all, would members of the Mountain Empire Community College Foundation Board please stand and be recognized? Foundation Board. And if we have any members here that serve on our local advisory board, would they please stand up, be recognized? We also have some special guests who were formerly inducted into the Mountain Empire Community College Foundation Hall of Honor. I'd like to recognize them or their family members who are present. First of all, back in 2007, Bob Isaacs was our honoree, and he is a former board member. Bob is kind of a perpetual board member. He's been on the board for a long time. Bob, would you stand up and be recognized? Secondly, in 2008, Mrs. Virginia Metter was our honoree, and she is also serving as a MECC Foundation board member. Virginia, would you please stand up to be recognized? And I haven't seen our next honoree, but Donnie Ratliff was our 2012 honoree and a Mountain Empire Community College Foundation board member also. He and Vicki were returning from Roanoke today, and you all know how traffic is on Route 81. I'm not sure they even got here yet, but let's give Donnie a round of applause. We also want to recognize Ethel Daniels is here tonight with us, and she is the widow of Charlie Daniels, who was an honoree of the board too. And our 2016 honoree, Karen Hall. Karen is a former board member and a longtime chair of the Gala Committee. So Karen. Now go ahead and I want to talk a little about Karen here more. Everyone knows how much work goes into planning and conducting a foundation gala. The gala committee sells ads for the program, sells tickets to friends and neighbors, decorates for the event, and we're extremely grateful for all of the gala committee members for giving of their time and talents to assist the foundation. Karen Hull has served as chair of the gala committee for 19 years. Every year that Karen has led this effort, we've had a beautiful gala and a successful fundraiser, and this year is no exception. Karen, will you please stand and be recognized for your efforts to support the foundation? And as in years past, Karen has had the help of a wonderful gala committee. As I call the names of the committee members, please remain standing until everybody's name has been called. And audience, please hold your applause until we introduce everyone. First of all, Mary Beth Allen. Hold your applause, please. Robin Arnold, Stan Botch Jr., Ethel Daniels, Betty Fleener, Kathleen Gillespie, Marie Hamilton, Nancy Kilgore, Bob Isaac and Dorothy Isaac, Rita McCann, Martha Spurlock, Jan Tate, Angela Tipton, and Nancy Toney. Let's give these folks a round of applause for their efforts on this gala. Finally, I'd like to recognize the staff who are here tonight to assist with the gala. I will ask that the foundation staff please stand as your names are called to be recognized, and again, please hold your applause until all are standing. Special recognition, of course, goes to Jerry Bledsoe, who worked with the gala committee to plan and pull off this wonderful event. Jerry, please stand. Nope. Let's get them all. Brandy McAfee, Heather Mays, and Stacy Miniard assisted you at the check-in desk and helped throughout the week getting the things ready for this. Let's give the folks from the foundation staff a round of applause. In your gala program, you're going to find a list of our event sponsors. We're very grateful to each and every one of the sponsors who contributed to the financial success of this event. Our gold sponsor is the Wellmont Health System. Our silver sponsors include Powell Valley National Bank and Southwest Insurance Agency, and Adriana Trigiani, Tim Stevenson, and daughter Lucia. Our bronze sponsors include Crutchfield and Food City, John and Becky Matney, and Wise County Industrial Development Authority. Please note the many individuals and businesses that have purchased advertising in the gala program. When you have the opportunity to visit these merchants, please express your appreciation to them for their support of the Mountain Empire Community College Foundation. Let's give these folks a round of applause. Now we're going to get on with the speakers for the evening. I'm going to do a short introduction for all the speakers tonight, and then they'll each come to the podium in their turn. The first is Ben's son, Mike, who will represent his brother and sister. The second, Mr. Ron Flannery, is a friend of Ben's who I understand was a neighbor of Ben's for many years. The third is Mr. Ken Crowder, friend of Ben's, pro at Lonesome Pine Country Club, and co-host of the popular sports radio show Pigskin Picks. Fourth, Mr. Doug Horn, whose friendship with Ben goes back to their association with the former Wise County Bank. Doug will provide some more entertainment as well. So, folks, the speakers come on up, Mike, and get things kicked off, and the rest of you come up in order. Thank you.
I think they're sending the JV out before they send out the varsity with Ron and Ken and Doug, but that's okay. I'm going to introduce the family, and it's truly an honor. But one thing Dr. Hamilton didn't do, I think we need to do, is, of course, he is retiring and leaving Big Stone Gap. Him and his wife Marie have been just fabulous members of our community. They've been entrenched, and besides Mountain Empire Community College, they've been entrenched in our community, and I think we need to give them a big round of applause. It really is a privilege for me to represent the family tonight, and I'll go through and introduce the family members, but I'll only ask one to stand, And the first one I'll ask to stand will be my mom, Dottie. And I'm going to answer a question that I get asked almost literally on a daily basis. And I'm in businesses throughout Southwest Virginia and East Tennessee on really a daily basis. And the question I get asked, either the first question or the last question, is, how's your mom and dad? And I'll tell you what I tell them. They're out and about every day. They're still involved in the community. They have great attitudes. They're doing really, really good. So I want to tell you, that's the way I answer that question almost each and every day. My mom, she had a little bit of, I guess you would say, a little bit of a medical problem back in December, and she's bounced back wonderfully. But we were leaving the rehab place, and we were walking down the hall, and she was on her rollator, which is kind of like a walker. And she looked at me, and she said, I can't hardly see, and I don't hear very well, and barely walk. Thank goodness I can still drive. And that's kind of the way Mom looks at things. And then I had a good friend of mine that told me behind every successful man is a really good woman right out in front of him. And I think that kind of speaks to Mom too. Mom and Dad had kind of a special formula for a long time. Ben made the living, and Mom made the living good. And I think that's the way they've operated for a long time. The Bible talks a lot about servant leadership, and I think Mom is one of the finest servant leaders you'll run into. She smiles, she laughs, she cries with you, she loves you very much, and she's the leader of our family. I want to introduce the rest of the family, and I'm going to do it kind of the way Ben, I've heard him do it before. So I'll start with brothers and sisters. First would be his oldest son, Andy. Andy, he introduced him as Andy graduated from Powell Valley High School with honors back in the early 70s. He's a graduate of the University of Tennessee, a master's degree in public administration. He worked at Little Wisco for a short period of time, and then he moved to Nashville. And I think there's about 6,000 real estate agents in Nashville, and he ranks in the top 5 each and every year, sells about 150 homes a year. And that's the way Ben introduced his oldest son, Andy. And then Carol, his youngest child, his daughter, he introduced her as not his favorite, although we know that she is. But she went to Powell Valley High School, graduated from East Tennessee State, worked for U.S. Tobacco for a number of years, and climbed the corporate ladder and retired before the age of 50. And her husband, Mark, works for Norfolk Southern and has for 30 years. And he also has weaved his way through the corporate ladder and has done very, very, very well. My wife, Mary Beth, Ben introduces her really as a daughter also. He loves her like a daughter, and I think she loves him like a dad. And they have a really, really, really good relationship. I hear her all the time calling him Benny. I think that's her nickname for him. But he introduces her as a graduate of Powell Valley High School. She's a graduate of Milligan College and a teacher, a gifted teacher in Lee County and Wise County. And I know he loves her, like I said, like a daughter. And then somebody said, well, what about Mike, your son, your middle son? He said, oh yeah. He said, he's been in the insurance business for about 38 years. I would best describe him as he's in the twilight of a mediocre career. So I understand that too, Ben. There's a couple other family members with us, and I'll introduce them. Ben's nephew, David Rotenberry, and his wife, Joanne, are here with us. And Joanne's a retired teacher and homemaker, and David retired from Boeing and Magnavox before the age of 40. David, Ben always describes you as the smartest one in the family. He really does. However, I want you to know that's not a real high standard in our family. I want you to know that. But we are so honored that you all are here with us. And David is the son of his sister, Mary. So that's how that. At this table over here sits the grandchildren who Ben and Dottie are most proud of. And I'll be very brief, but Carol and Mark's children, Kurt, TJ, and Erica, all college graduates and all taxpayers. Mary Beth and myself, our son, John Michael, our daughter, Lauren, and her husband, Tyler. So if you would join me in giving the family a nice round of applause. I think you'll find as I talk just a little bit tonight that there are 3 really prevalent things with Ben that happen in everything he does. I think you'll find that you'll see God first, you'll see family second, and you'll see community and business third. and they all kind of interweave with each other, and they're just kind of woven back and forth. But you'll see God, family, and community in just about everything he does. It wouldn't be a Ben Allen event if you didn't have a couple of Ben Allen stories. And these are the stories that Andy and Carol and I grew up with whenever he spoke. So I'll share a couple of those with you. He did tell me one time when I was about 13 years old and was complaining about taking the garbage out. He said, "Son, take the garbage out. I grew up on a farm. I was 14 years old before I realized my name wasn't Get Wood." So the other story that he told a lot was that he was born just outside of Bristol, Tennessee, out on the Weaver Pike in a little community called Wedlock, Tennessee, which he never really thought anything about. But as he got older and went off to college, and he began to introduce himself, and people would say, "Where are you from?" And he said he was born out of wedlock. So he said that was kind of an embarrassment to him. I would like to talk about Ben and his community, and if you'll bear with me, I'm going to read some things, and it really is a little bit unbelievable. But the first thing I want to talk about is Ben and his church. He's a 55-year member of Trinity United Methodist Church in Big Stone Gap. He's served in most every capacity in that church. He's a regular Sunday school member. He's a member of the men's club. He works at the food bank. And him and Mom don't miss many Sundays, and when they're there, they sit on the first row. But he's a long-time loyal member of Trinity United Methodist Church. He also served on the Holston Home for Children board for over 10 years, and I know he loved that work when he did that. If you don't mind, if you'll bear with me, I'd like to read some of the activities he's been involved in. He's been on the Lonesome Pine Hospital board, the Wellmont Foundation board. He's a member of the Wellmont Hall of Fame. The town of Big Stone, he served on town council 2 different stints. And when I say that, that's not 2 different terms. He served both in the 70s and then again in the 90s. He was also a 2-time mayor in the 70s and again in the 90s. He was on the Big Stone Gap Redevelopment and Housing Authority for 20 years. He was on the Little Wisco Board of Directors from 1969 to 1971, and then again from 2002 to 2012, serving as the chairman in 2005. He's been a member of the Big Stone Gap Lions Club for 50 years. He's been the president twice, and he also was on the committee that founded the famous, the most popular Big Stone Gap Peanut Football League, which has been just a godsend for Big Stone Gap. One quick story, he served on the Wise County Industrial Development Authority, Kenny, for 32 years, and I know he served with you for a long time. One quick story on that Kenny told me. He said that they were at a meeting, and of course, they're always looking for industry, always looking for opportunities. And somebody came and they wanted to put a Taco Bell in Wise County. And Ben adamantly stood up and said, "I just cannot vote for this. I think Wise County has enough telephone companies." So that's the story. I don't know if that's true, Ben. He was the first treasurer the first 5 years of the Trail of Lonesome Pine, and he was a founding board member of the Wise County National Bank. And as you know, he's been on the Mountain Empire Community College Foundation Board for a long, long time, and he's being honored tonight. I did a couple things as I close. I want to talk about a little bit about being in sports. And I think everybody sitting out there knows that he has an undying love of sports. And just three or four really quick things about being in sports. He was a baseball player in high school, an outstanding baseball player at Tennessee High School. He played semi-pro baseball for the Bristol State Liners and was offered a professional baseball contract after a tryout with the New York Giants. He was the 40-year public address announcer for the Powell Valley Vikings. And Ryan, I'm sure many, many times you hearken back and hear that voice. It's football time in Bullock Park. And all of us have done that. Also, after that, we stumbled onto each other, and Ken and Greg and Ben and myself, we've been hanging out for 17 years on Thursday nights doing pigskin picks, and we really, really enjoy each other. And in typical Ben fashion, he very calmly laid down 3 or 4 rules when we started, and he said, "This is about Southwest Virginia and East Tennessee and their enthusiasm on Friday nights. We will not be negative about players, coaches, referees, or communities." And the few times we've ventured off that path, he's steered us back on quickly. So, Ben, it's been quite a run, and I got to be your son for about 18 or 20 years now. I've got to be one of your very best friends for the last 30, and I'm honored to be that too. I want to finish with what I'll call quips, quotes, and guidelines for a good life from Ben Allen. And I added a couple late in the day today because Lauren and John Michael told me one. Lauren said one of her favorite quotes is, "Do good every chance you get." And that's one of Ben's favorite quotes. And John Michael said one of his favorite quotes that invariably when he leaves the house or gets off the phone, he says, "Keep her in the road." So that's one of Ben Allen's. But here are some quips and quotes that I think that you'll enjoy that Ben lives by. Does God approve? Is it practical? Keep her in the road. Fear the cigar. Ken, you'll talk about that. If you win the rat race, you're still a rat. Good attitude, good results. And finally, I'll close with this, and I think this really sums up Ben in a lot of ways. Don't cry and be sad because it's over. Laugh and smile because you got to do it. Thank you, Ben.
First of all, I got an invitation from my neighbor, Jerry Bledsoe, if we could play some music tonight. And then said, "Oh, by the way, you need to speak a little bit." So I'm not getting paid for this. I will be for that. Maybe I should be paid for this when you hear that. I have known the Allen family for a very long time. Wilma and I were honored to be their neighbors for 17 years on Shawnee Avenue. And we had a lot of exchanges with them, all of them pleasant. Some of them emergencies, but all of them pleasant. The first person I got to know, though, was Andy. Andy and I worked at Lennawisco, started the same day. He worked there about 18 months. Lennawisco, and you guys know Bruce Robinette. Bruce was a little uptight about the times, so Andy and I brought a lot of levity into there. We did things that they had never seen before. We just trashed the place. He was humorous. He had a great sense of humor. I matched up well with him, so he and I would try to outdo each other. I wish I could share with you some of the things we did, but it's not appropriate in a mixed company. So, but it was good. We kept Bruce was upset for a long time, and Mike. I didn't realize what a sense of humor the Allen family had. It's in the DNA. They all got this great sense of humor. And I didn't get to know Mike until much later, and we were involved in the school consolidation issue. But the one that I really loved was the opening for the movie. It's about 2 years ago. We had Adri appointed a committee through Mike of people she knew to put all this stuff together, and mostly it was through Mike and Greg Kress. So we had a little committee. We'd meet at Southwest Insurance office, and you do this and you do this. And at some point they said, "Ron, you do the parade. Have you done parades?" I said, "I've marched in some when I was little, but I haven't ever planned a parade." So I did. I started putting this thing together, and it was an adventure. I'd have to talk to people about how they build their float. I'd have to talk to the bands and the band directors. You need to come in here. I'd have to tell politicians, and no, it's not appropriate for you to do that. I know you're running for re-election. We don't need that. And then I had to turn down all the folks that wanted to bring 5,000 fire trucks and things with sirens going. I said, "No, that's not that kind of parade." But the tension kept building up with me, and it got to the point that I heard from one organization that had really just kind of flipped me out, because we had made arrangements at a great deal of effort to get Wells Fargo to bring the stagecoach with horses and all that. And we were going to put that in the front of the parade, and we were going to get Adri on top of the stagecoach. We didn't achieve that, but we tried. So anyway, I got so put out with this one organization. I said, "Listen," "if you guys want to help, why don't you get some shovels and follow behind a stagecoach and shovel up horse manure? That'd be great if you could do that." Mike and Greg didn't find great humor in that, so they had to go behind me and clean that up. Not literally. But anyway, they eventually found out I was justified in saying that. I got 2 stories to tell. I had many, but I got 2 stories to tell. I can't remember exactly when it was. Mike, you were in college, so you graduated when? 97. Good. I'll need to see a transcript. Certified. Mike was at 1980. Okay, so I think this was probably late 70s. So Wilma and I, here's Wilma, raise your hand. Wilma and I were at home, just enjoying ourselves, directly across Shawnee Avenue from the Allens. So at some time in the night, there's a, I thought, well, somebody at the front door. So it was Dottie and Carol had and was in her pajamas, and she had a little dog, and we couldn't remember the dog's name. We'll just call it Ren 1010. But they came in, and she said, "Our house is on fire." And I, immediately, I sprang into action. I did know, called the fire department, so I did. So Wilma consoled them, and we took them in. They'd been washing the dog, and Dottie was helping Carol, and she'd put a pan of grease on the stove to loosen up. And then that didn't work out well, and so it had started a fire. So I called the fire department, and then I thought, I need to go over there, and confront this like a man. I asked her where the garden hose was. It was in the back. So I went in. So I went to the back, and I think it had a sliding door in the kitchen. I looked in, and for a second I said, "This is not going to have a good outcome for me." So it was gone. So anyway, we stayed with them, and Ben was not there, and that's typically the way it is for a man, for a husband. Tim, he wasn't there. Mike was playing basketball at Clinch Valley that night, and they were coming back, so Mike told me this later. So they were coming down through there, and Ben saw fire trucks and flames and all that, and he said, "Jim Honeycutt's house is on fire." He said, "That is a shame." Well, as they got closer and they started going down Shawnee, you could see it was his house. He said, "That's our house. This is a damn shame." And the last thing I'm going to tell you is a joke he told. He was indeed the Linnawisco chairman in 2005, and occasionally we'd have a big party. We had it at the country club, and we had Big Tom, who came in from Survivor. He was quite a guy. And so, you can't script Ben. So he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Well, you just open the program and do whatever you want to." Bad mistake. So anyway, he said, he thanked everyone for coming. He said, I'm going to tell this little story. It's a little rough, but it's not too bad. He said, this is one B.F. Robinette used to tell. He said there was an old boy who had bibbed overalls, said he'd go down to the trail, and every time they'd have a new Elvis movie, and he had a pet duck, and he'd carry the bibbed overalls, and he had this duck with him, and he went in, and he was going to buy a ticket from Crystal Ball. That was actually her name, by the way. And she looked at that, and she said, "What's that duck with you?" She said, "Well, it's my pet duck." She said, "The health department will not allow us to allow animals in the theater. I'm sorry, you can't bring a duck in." He said, "But I've always got my duck." He said, "Well, you're not going to have him in the Trail Theater. That just won't happen." So he was real despondent. So he went around the corner past Mike's and went over there, and he came up with this idea. He said, "Well, I'll just open up these bibbed overalls and put the duck in there, and because the duck's not that big, and maybe he'll be okay." So he goes back. He looks at Miss Ball and said, "I got rid of the duck. Can I get a ticket?" So it was 50 cents. So he went on in. Well, it was always dark. You never knew how the Trail Theater actually looked. It was dark in there all the time. I always wondered how the seats looked, if they were actually upholstered. But anyway, it was always dark. So this guy goes in the middle, it's seated, and the previews are coming on. And just before the show starts, this duck starts really squirming around, because he's not getting any air. So the only thing he can think to do is he's got these button flies. So he opens it up so the duck could stick his head out and get a little air. And the duck probably wanted to see the movie too. So these two old maids came in. They sat down. It was getting full, so they sat beside this old guy. So after a while, the woman that was seated beside the guy with the duck, she leaned over to her friend. She said, "This man's exposing himself over here." And she said, the friend said, "Don't pay any attention to it." Said, "You seen one? You seen them all." She said, "I don't know about this. This one's eating my popcorn." And that's how Ben Allen opened tonight out there in 2005. And let me say, in all seriousness, this is from Wilma and me, and with all due respects to Jerry and Charles, who are wonderful neighbors, we've been there about 20 years, but the Allens were the best neighbors we ever had. We loved them. We still love them. And everything that you could say positive about any of them is the truth. I can verify that, and Wilma can verify that. Thanks. You deserve it. Thank you.
Well, like Ron and a lot of folks here, I've known the Allen family for a long, long time, and 40 plus years. And 17 years ago, when Mike called me, he said, I want to run an idea by you. I said, okay. He said, what do you think about doing a sports show on WAXM? At the time, Greg had a whole lot of jobs, and one of the jobs that he had, he was managing WAXM. And I said, well, okay, I'll hear it out. So we got to talking about it, and we decided we'd get together and have some fun. The four of us, Ben and Greg and Mike and myself, and so we started doing it. And the first year we had one sponsor, and coincidentally it was Southwest Insurance. And we said, this might go a year. We'll have some fun and yuck it up, and somehow 17 years later we're still going. And Mike's right. The law was laid down. Mr. Allen, who, likes to play everything by the book and make sure that we don't do the right thing, he told us this is how we're going to do it. We haven't always listened. And I recall one particular night several years ago. I don't know if any of you remember when Jessica Simpson was married to Nick Lachey and they had a reality show. Anybody remember that? Well, I don't know if it was an act or whether she was maybe really like this, but this particular episode, if you ever watched it, it was about a 15 or 20-minute discussion with her not understanding that she was eating out of a can of chicken of the sea, that it wasn't chicken. And her husband was trying to explain to her that you're eating tuna, and she said, but it says chicken. And so this went on and on. Well, Greg and Mike and I get on this discussion about this during the show, and Mike and I more so than Greg, because Greg was smarter than us. And we go on for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes about this, and then we talk a little bit about another episode for another 5 minutes of the same reality show. And one of Ben's great ideas about that show was when we would have our breaks, we would do them like quarter breaks, and we would, fire a horn like you'd hear, in a gym at the end of a quarter. And at that time, I was a cigarette smoker, which I'm not anymore, and as soon as that thing fired, I'd jump up and run outside, and Mike would usually come, and sometimes Greg, and we'd sit out there and talk for 4 or 5 minutes while the commercials ran. So that particular night when we were having these discussions about Jessica Simpson and Nick Lachey, which I guess we thought were important, the buzzer sounded, and we were going to jump up and go, and Ben said, y'all probably just need to sit right there. We just both looked at Ben, and he said, let me just say something to you two. And Greg was off the hook. He looked right at Mike and right at me, and he said, let me say something to you two. I have no idea who Jessica Simpson is. I have no idea why she doesn't know the chicken of the sea is tuna. But I know this. She doesn't have a thing to do with football. So if we're going to do a football show, you all need to talk about football. I froze up solid, and I thought, I wonder how Mike's going to respond. He froze up solid. So we go outside. We get outside, and Mike says, man, well, this is bad. This is bad. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I rode up here with Dad. He said, I'm going to hear about it all the way back to Big Stone. I said, you think he's really mad? Yeah, he's mad. So for 2 weeks, it is just by the book, X's and O's, defense, offense. We pick so-and-so to win. It's just by the book. No shenanigans whatsoever. We come in there one night about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, and before the show starts, we're just all sitting in there kind of shooting the breeze, and Ben says, I need to tell you two something. I thought, golly, we are in trouble again. He said, I was down at the post office yesterday, and I ran into a guy who said he's been listening to the show for a long time. Said he really likes the show. And, you know, I'll be honest, we hear that from time to time, and I don't say this with any kind of false humility. I'm continually shocked by people who say that, and I usually say to them, do you really not have anything else to do on Thursday night, but we're glad you're listening. But I said, man, we're going to be in trouble again. Ben said, well, I was talking to this guy, and he said, I really enjoyed the show for a good while, but he said, the last 2 weeks have been awful. Ben said, he said to him, why? And he said, it's just X's and O's and boring stuff. And he said, I miss all that silliness coming out of those other boys. And Ben said, he took a big deep breath and said, so I guess just start acting stupid again. So now for about the last 10 years, that's what we've done, and it's been good. My youngest son, I have 4 sons, I'm very blessed, and my youngest son is 22, and I was 9 when he was born, and he was 5 when we started doing the show, and obviously he couldn't give a hoot about pigskin pigs, but as he got older and he got into sports and he was playing some youth league football, and I was fortunate enough to get to coach him, and so I got home from work one Thursday and I took him home from football practice, and I was in a hurry, and I said, son, I've got to go, got to get down and do the show. And I said, you think you're about ready to start listening to that show? He said, you know what, Dad, I think I'm going to listen to it tonight. I said, great, that's wonderful. So when I got home, we go till about 9:45, and then we usually sit around and chew the fat for a few minutes. And I got home, he was in bed. So the next night, I get home, and we were just talking. I said, hey, did you listen to the show last night? He said, I did, Dad. I said, did you really? He said, I swear I did. And I said, well, what did you think? He's 10 years old. He said, and by the way, there's a lot of parents in here, when your kid starts out something by saying, no offense, Dad, the next line is offensive every time. He said, no offense, Dad. He said, but you and Mike and Greg, y'all are kind of silly. Mr. Allen, he's the real deal. I said, he's the real deal? I said, okay, how's he the real deal, Tanner? And he said, Dad, it's obvious he's the only one of y'all that know anything about football. I said, I can't argue with you, son. You know, there's been a lot of discussion here tonight, and there will be later on about all of Ben's successes and his benevolence, which is maybe peerless. I mean, I'm not sure anybody has given as much as Ben has to not only his community. I was sitting over here with everybody, and I said, I hope somebody talks about just how many different boards that Ben has served on throughout his career. And of course, I opened the program and it's in there, and then Mike did it, and I was even shocked because I knew it was a bunch. But I don't know if you know what an entrepreneur Ben is. You know, everybody knows he had success for 40 plus years in the oil business, and I don't know if any people know in here, at one time, Ben actually sold Mason shoes. Did you know that? He did. Sold Mason shoes. The story is that he actually ordered a pair from the catalog one time, and they sent him a certificate congratulating him. You're now a Mason sales rep. Well, that's a challenge to Ben Allen. He said, didn't know it, but that's fine with me. Next thing you know, Ben's traveling door to door selling Mason shoes in what little spare time he had when he wasn't in the oil business or serving on a board. And I'm going to tell you, Ben Allen does things the right way. When he's going to be successful in anything he does. So one evening, Ben's traveling out in the country, and he's got his supply of samples of Mason shoes, and he comes upon this farmhouse. And he pulls his vehicle over, and he starts to walk up this long front steps to this farmhouse. And typical farm, this was years and years ago, typical farm, you know, there's animals everywhere, crops everywhere. And as he's walking up the steps, he looks over to the left, and he sees a lot full of hogs and pigs. And he just kind of glances over, and he's walking up. He looks, and something catches his eye, and he's like, what in the world? He looks over there, and one of the pigs has a wooden leg. He's like, that's the wildest thing I've ever seen. So he knocks on the door. Farmer answers the phone. He introduces himself, telling him why he's there, and he says, well, come on in, young man. Tell us what you've got. Show it to us. So he goes in there. Ben sits down, and he says, well, tell us what you've got. And he said, well, before I do that, he said, I don't want to be nosy, because you know Ben, he's not going to be that type of person. He said, I got to ask you something. I'm walking up your front steps, and I have to glance over, and in your lot, you've got a pig there with a wooden leg. He said, why does that pig have a wooden leg? Farmer says, well, let me tell you about that pig, son. He said, this house that you're in right now is only 3 years old. He said, first house burned down. He said, my wife, my 2 kids, we were asleep. We inhaled those fumes and said, we were out. Said, do you know that that pig that you saw came into that house, pulled each and every one of us out of that house, and saved our lives? He said, oh, the pig lost its leg in the fire. I said, no, it didn't hurt the pig. Well, why does the pig have a wooden leg? He said, son, let me tell you about that pig. He said, my youngest son, he just won't listen. He said he always wants to take a shortcut to school. And when he does that, he has to go across railroad tracks, which is just terribly dangerous. I stayed on him all the time about it. So one day he's going to school, and he goes across railroad tracks, and he's not paying attention. He trips, and he gets his foot caught between the railroad tie and the rail. You got it, oncoming train coming. And he said, well, do you know at the last minute that pig happened to follow him to school and grabbed a hold of him with his snout and pulled him out right before that train came by? He said, oh, pig lost its leg in the train accident. Farmer said, no, it didn't hurt the pig. Ben said, well, why in the world does the pig have a wooden leg? He said, let me tell you about that pig, son. He said, I'm out working in the fields one day on my tractor, and he said, I'm not paying attention. He said, I run over a big rock, and it flips the tractor and traps me under it. Fuel just rushing out of that tractor. All I can think is this tractor's going to blow up. I'm done. My days are over. Do you know that pig came along, got a hold of me, and somehow pulled me out from underneath that tractor, and just a few seconds later, that tractor exploded. Ben's thinking, finally, so the pig lost its leg in the tractor explosion. He said, no, it didn't hurt the pig. Ben said, well, sir, why in the world does that pig have a wooden leg? He said, good Lord, son, you don't dare eat a pig like that all at one time. So, Ben told that story. I want to say one thing. Everybody's gotten up here and they've been funny, and I've tried to be, and I haven't been. But I want to say one seriously thing about Ben. You know, like I said, I've known Ben for 40 years, and my father moved to Florida in 1984 with my mother, who we unfortunately lost January 28th after a horrific battle with an even more horrific disease. And you know, I've been with Ben every Thursday night just about for 17 years, and just see him off and on at a ball game or things of that nature. But Ben has always been one of those guys that I've always substituted. With my dad being gone for 33 years, and I still love my dad, and he's still very much a huge part of my life. But Ben's always been one of those guys that I've used as a substitute / surrogate father. And I've asked him several times over the years for advice on various and sundry things, and he's always, as no one in this room would be surprised about, said exactly the right thing. And, you know, I think the Reverend would appreciate what I'm about to say. I think everybody's faith is their own personal business, but I just want to close here tonight by saying this, that every night when I lay my head on the pillow and I say my prayers, I say prayers that are very similar to what I think a lot of folks in this room do. You know, I ask for good health and safety for all my family members and those closest to me. And if there's some sort of crisis or crises that are happening where I feel a need to say a prayer, or I've been asked to say a prayer, I try to do that too. And this last part, you know, I certainly wouldn't blame on anyone but myself, but the last thing that I do every single night, and this is the truth, if I'm standing here, the last 2 things I say is I ask the Lord to help make me a better person, and most of all, help me think more of and care for other people than myself. And as I was driving down here from Norton this evening to come to this, I thought, you know, it's kind of lazy, but I can save me a few words when I do that tonight. Because at the very end tonight, I'm going to ask the Lord to make me more like Ben Allen. Love you.
Hello, Ben. Doug Horn. You know, a lot of people don't know me. Ben knows me real well. Has for a long time now, hasn't it, Ben? Probably 40 years, I guess. But anyway,
you know, I had 3 good things to say up here. And then all of a sudden, Mike comes up, and he steals my thunder about the time that you didn't want another phone company coming in. And then Ron comes up, and he tells a story about that duck, and I had that all lined up. I want to say, you know, Ben and I go back a long way. Ben was on the board of directors of Wise County National Bank when I was there as, I guess, some sort of an employee. But anyway, Ben and I always look forward to the board meetings because of Ben. Because after the board meeting was over, we'd get in a corner somewhere and we'd try to share a story of some sort. And Ben, I always looked upon Ben as a philosopher because he always had the greatest things to say. And one time Ben told me, he said, "Son, I want to give you some advice." He said, "A guy that's been married as many times as you have, you need some advice." And I said, "Okay, Ben." He said, "Look, you just got to take charge. You got to be in control. Be the boss. Run things around your house." Excuse me. And I said, "Okay, Ben, I'm going to do that." Ben, it's working. I want to tell you, after all these many years, it's working. I had Shuri down on her knees yesterday begging me to come out from on the bed. And I'm telling you what's the truth, I run everything around the house. The dishwasher, the vacuum cleaner, all those things. It's really working. Thanks, Ben. Boy, I'm sorry. My arm hit that, Ben, I'm sorry. But anyway, I know why I'm here. Some of you may not. But anyway, Ben and I, like I said, have shared some stories along the way. Ben, I've got 2 or 3 folks back here in the back that I need to kind of get control of. So if you all will excuse me, I'm going to go back here. I can get through that door, can I, to get back here? So excuse me, I'll be back shortly. Dark back here, Ben. There's supposed to be a button here. Oh, there it is. Can you all hear me? Now listen, folks. This is a very solemn thing that's going on here. And you cannot come out here and embarrass people and say things, okay? Now listen to me. You can't come out. But you told me that I could get to see Ben. Now, Ma, don't be upset. I told you that I wanted to see Ben. I'm getting old, and I don't know how long I might last, and he's so darn good looking. You told me you'd hook me up with him. Now, wait a minute, Maud, I never said that. I told you you might get to see him. Well, you know, I'm getting old. I ain't got but one nerve, and you're getting on it now. Foster, you be quiet back here. I don't want you getting up and doing anything foolish. I can't get up anyway, so don't worry. You know, I wanted to tell Ben that I got a new job. Well, what's that, Foster? I'm an airline pilot. You're an airline pilot in the condition well, you don't expect me to fly a plane without this kind of condition, do you? Well, y'all be quiet now. Got one more fella here, and he's going to do the thing to honor Mr. Ben. Okay. Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror. Gotta get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be one heck of a man. Oh, Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can.
Oh, hi, Ben. It's good to see you, Ben. I want to tell you all a story about Ben when he was just a little boy. He wasn't very big, he was just a little boy, and he had two guys with him. And they were walking down the street, probably in Big Stone Gap, I'd say. But anyway, what happened? They walked by the candy store. And they walked into the store, and the little guy was there behind the counter, and the first guy, they all three walked up to the counter, and he said to the first little boy, he said, "What do you want, little boy?" He said, "I want 10 cents worth of peppermint candy." So the little guy goes down the hallway, he gets a ladder, he pulls it over to the shelf, and he climbs up the ladder, and he reaches back on the back of the shelf, and he gets the jar of peppermint candy. He climbs down the ladder, and he puts the ladder over there, and he walks up to the counter, and he pours out 10 cents worth of peppermint candy. He walks back down the aisle, he gets a ladder, he pulls it over to the shelf, he sets the jar of peppermint candy over there, and climbs back down the ladder, and he comes back over to the second little boy, and he said, "What do you want, little boy?" He said, "I want 10 cents worth of peppermint candy too." So the little guy goes down the aisle, and he gets the ladder, pulls it over to the shelf, and he climbs up the ladder, and he reaches back on the back of the shelf, gets the jar of peppermint candy, goes over and climbs. Oh, he forgot to climb down the ladder. But anyway, he goes down and he goes up to the counter and he pours out 10 cents worth of peppermint candy. He goes and puts the lid on the jar, and he goes back down there aisle. He gets a ladder, pulls it over and climbs up the ladder, sets the jar of peppermint candy over there, climbs back down the ladder. He walks back up to the counter and he says, "What do you want, Ben?" Ben said, "I want 5 cents worth of peppermint candy." Most of y'all don't know, I have acted like a fool a lot of times. A lot of people don't know, maybe not a lot of people in here remember Jackie Gleason. Jackie Gleason had a guy on there by the name of Frank Fontaine who was Crazy Guggenheim. I didn't have a way to get off of Pole Bridge Road when I was going to school, so I had to watch Jackie Gleason every Saturday night. And I just went crazy over Frank Fontaine, Crazy Guggenheim. And I'll never forget, every time I went to the country club, or Ben, or Dude McElroy, or Bill Witt, or Jim Robinson, or Kenny, or somebody would always, "Hey, Doug, come up here and do a little bit of Crazy Guggenheim." And I don't know how many times that I've been up on chairs and I was giving golf lessons. I gave Kenny one there one time about his hook deal, you know. "Hey, Kenny." And I did that one time to Ben Crenshaw, and I don't think he appreciated that too much. I grabbed him by the hand and said, "Hey, Ben, let me tell you." He didn't crack a smile. But anyway, I've had a lot of fun doing that. And Ben, some of the things that we have shared along the years, over the years, we could tell some real stories, couldn't we? And I've thought so many times about Mary Lou and Cecil Simpson. We had a lot of laughs over those two. They couldn't come tonight, but we remember them, don't we? And then there was another couple, Giovanni and Giuseppe, from the old country. You know, they work very hard in this country, and they build up their business and everything. And they work really, really hard. We can't talk about them either. But anyway, I am honored to be able to come here and help honor my good friend, Ben Allen. It's so good to see you, Ben. So good to see you, Dottie. There was one story that I would tell you that a long time ago that Ben went fishing. And when he came back, Dottie was away. And when she came in, water was everywhere. And she said, "Ben, what in the world's happened?" He said, "I went ice fishing and I put it upstairs." Oh, Lordy.
But anyway, thank you all. Ben, congratulations. It is an absolute well-deserved. God bless you.
Well, thank you all the speakers. That was very entertaining and interesting and inspiring to hear all those stories about Ben. Now, every year when we honor somebody here, we always have to have them come up and unveil a portrait that we're going to put out in the hall here. So I would like to ask Ben and his family at this time to come up and join me as we unveil the portrait. Come on up. We're gonna unveil the portrait right now. Right here. This picture. Okay. Got the cameras all ready? Okay, here we go. Here we go, unveiling the portrait. I'll knock it off before I do it again. Oh, that's great. You wanna say a few words? Yeah, you wanna say a few words now?
Here, Mom, you come with me. Watch these chords.
Well, I've been entertained, and I am honored and humbled to be placed in the Mountain Empire Community College Hall of Honor. It's been a great privilege to serve on the foundation board with many knowledgeable individuals who share what the foundation provides for the students. And now, as has been mentioned, I am somewhat of a sports fan. And one of the individuals that has quite a career in professional baseball was Yogi Berra, who's a longtime catcher for the New York Yankees. And on some occasion, he was honored, and he had a famous one-liner that he used, and it went like this: I want to thank each and every one that made this night necessary. And I will follow up by saying many individuals who have participated in sports realize that there's no I in team. And this might have been maybe the possible as a result of the great effort that has made Mountain Empire Community College what they are today. Thank you to everyone that made this special night possible. Thank you very much.
Well, the evening's not quite over yet. We have some great musical entertainment for your pleasure. Ron Flannery got this group together to perform for us, and I understand they have a wide repertoire tonight, ranging from Beatles to popular dance tunes. So without any further ado, let's welcome the Virginians. Come on up, fellas.
Hey guys, I'll introduce the members of the band later if it's worthy. Remains to be seen. Before they get here, I'll say that the Virginians is kind of a loosely put together organization. But at least 3 of us were playing with the band in the 60s, and then we went through long periods of inactivity. So for tonight's gig, Richie Kennedy's not up here. Richie is the dawn of all music in Wise County. He asked me to kiss his, what was it? Oh, his ring. I wasn't sure. But he's in a mandatory family wedding tonight. And then Benji Cantrell has been playing drums for us. So I don't know the rest of these guys. They're just, it's called the Musicians Union. They came in. Okay, I got to move something around. By the way, Ben's most profound statement I failed to mention was when Wilma and I moved in April of 1994. The next time I saw him, he said, Ronnie, he said, best way I can look at this, he said, you all moving? He said, that's improved both neighborhoods. Ready, guys? Okay. Ready? All right. You never start a song without asking what key it's in. Give it a note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll write home every day, and I'll send all my loving to you. I'll pretend that I'm kissing the lips I am missing, and hope that my dreams will come true. And then while I'm away, I'll write home every day, and I'll send all my loving to you. All my loving I will send to you. All my loving, darling, I'll be true. Bill Thompson. Close your eyes and I'll kiss you. Tomorrow I'll miss you. Remember, I'll always be true. And then while I'm away, I'll write home every day, and I'll send all my loving to you. All my loving I will send to you. All my loving, baby, I'll be true. Yeah, all my loving, all my loving, ooh, all my loving, I will send to you. Yeah. That's all due respects to Paul McCartney. The first time I ever heard that was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and that was the first song they sang in America on TV, February the 9th, 1964. This reminds me more like playing in the old days because it's dark. It would be better if you guys would tinkle glasses occasionally so I know you're drinking something. So. All right. Thank you. It's in B flat, though. That's D. Yes, Buddy's got it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. When marimba rhythms start to play, dance with me, make me sway, like a lazy ocean hugs the shore. Sway me close, sway me more, like a flower bending in the breeze. Sway with me, bend with me. When we dance, you have your way with me. Stay with me, sway with me. Oh, Other dancers may be on the floor, but my eyes will see only you. And do you have that magic technique when we sway I go weak? I can hear the sound of violins long before it begins. Make me thrill as only you know how. Swim me smooth, swim me now. Other dancers may be on the floor, but my eyes will see only you. Only you have that magic technique. When we sway, I go weak. I can hear the sound of violins long before it begins. Let me sway as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. Make me sway as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. Make me sway as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. Cha-cha-cha. Thank you very much. That was recorded by Michael Bublé and a long time ago by Dean Martin. Make me sway as only you know how. I could have done that like a drunk, but that wouldn't be appropriate. I've been sitting with the preacher over there. So we decided to do this number, and I swear this is the subject of probably a dozen emails back and forth about what key we're going to do this in. And I saw George Polly walking his lab on the Greenbelt. No, actually, the lab was walking George on the Greenbelt this morning. And I told him we were trying to figure out what key. And I said, we've got it in 4 different keys. And he said he wouldn't know the difference. And I said, yeah, you would. We start in 4 different keys. It sounds like cats romancing, so it's not good. So this is oh, I do have blue eyes, but I'm not Frank Sinatra. But this is a real good one. We were either going to do it in D, D flat, B flat, C, what else? Anything else? What did we finally decide? Close enough. Okay. You guys. I've got you under my skin. You know I've got you deep in the heart of me. So deep in my heart, you're really a part of me. And I've got you way under my skin. I've tried so hard not to give in. You know, I said to myself, this affair ain't gonna go so well. But why would I try to resist when, darling, I know so well that I've got you under my skin. I tried to do everything to do for the sake of having you near, in spite of the warning voice that rings in the night and repeats in my ear. Don't you know, you fool, you never can win. Wise up to your mentality, wake up to reality. Yeah, each time I do, just the thought of you makes me stop before I begin. Because I've got you under my skin. Buddy Stewart on a flugelhorn. I would sacrifice anything come what might for the sake of having you near, in spite of the warning voice that comes in the night and repeats and repeats and repeats in my ear. Don't you know, you silly fool, you never gonna win. Use mentality, baby, rise up to reality. Yeah, each time I do it, it's the start of you, make me stop. You know, it's amazing how I can control things as a vocalist. You notice this? Because I didn't tell him I was going to do this. Because I've got you under my skin, and I've got you under my skin. Yes, I've got you under my skin. Buddy Stewart. Oh, I got to check my cheat sheet. This is a good time to introduce the guys in the band. Well, you all know me, as if you care. We've been making music, I guess, this particular group about 7 years. I retired for about 20 years. When I retired from Lennowisco, Richie Kennedy came to me and said, this is a true story, he said, you should start playing trumpet again. Well, you can't lay off trumpet for 20 years and do it justice. Bud will tell you that. It's like I'm a marathon runner and I'm going to haven't run in 20 years, but I'm going to run the Boston Marathon. No, you're going to walk it. So I got, through Richie's encouragement, I got back into music, and I got hooked up with a lot of these guys, some of my old buddies and some newer buddies. So one of my newer musical buddies that I really love playing with is Bill Thompson right here. You know, let's give him a hand. You worked for Lane Engineering? Is it? No, Thompson Lane. Can get that right. This guy with a hat back here on bass guitar is probably one of the best bass guitar players I've ever heard. He's a professional engineer. He started playing with the Virginians because our bass player quit, and his mother and father agreed for him to be auditioned, and then allowed him to travel around with us in the 60s and play bass. It didn't speak well for his mother and father to put him on the road with us, but he was 14 years old, yeah. He told us he was 20, but he lives in Wise, and he's a professional engineer, so I played with this guy back in the 60s, Mark Wooten. The guy over here, he and I have been friends since high school. We go back maybe 63, 64 when he was a trumpet player at J.I. Burton and I was a trumpet player in Appalachia. It's kind of like two quarterbacks, you know, two different schools that kind of get together. So we were friends. So when Dad put the Virginians together, he said, we need to do two trumpets like a Tijuana brass. And I said, I got the guy. And so Buddy and I started with the Virginians together about 65 or 66. Initially, I was playing first trumpet because, you know, of course, I was better, right? Well, after about a year, I thought, I ain't cutting it. So I said, Bud, you play first trumpet, and I'll play second trumpet, and I'll sing and do something or slap a tambourine. And you can tell he's pretty darn good. Buddy Stewart. By the way, with respect to Nick Lachey, guys, he's from Cincinnati. He's a big Bengals fan. That would have worked. You could have worked that in. That's a segue into the guy back here, Jim Wardell, who grew up in Covington, Kentucky, in the Cincinnati area. He actually has a music degree, as does Buddy. Buddy has a master's degree. We don't have that. I told Donnie Sora I did my graduate work at the Tacoma Moose Lodge. But I couldn't get a transcript because it burned to the ground. So. But anyway, Jim Wardell is from that area. He moved down here. He was a band director at St. Paul. He moved into school administration. You were at Powell Valley Middle School as a principal? Yeah. Some of you all may think of bad experiences you've had with him if you're a parent, you know, so you could speak to him afterwards. He's now the director for the Center for Teaching Excellence at UVA Wise. And to tell you the truth, he'd prefer to do this because he is really a great musician. Jim Wardell. Now, this guy behind me was a recipient of a scholarship that's at UVA Wise that's named for my father, Joe Flannery Scholarship, and that's when I first got to know him. He has graduated as a music major at UVA Wise. He lives in Big Stone Gap, right?
I live pretty much across the road.
Across the road, in town limits or not?
No, I'm literally across the 4-lane at East Oak.
Oh, well, okay. So I just want to make sure for tax purposes if you were in or out of the corporate limits, because Steve Lawson's out there. So anyway, I played with him in the jazz ensemble and wind ensemble and things at the college, and and we have never played. He's never played drums with us at all. And when we came together to run through these numbers, he's the guy that gave us no trouble. The rest of us were unglued. Wes Harris. Okay, this next one is going to be another Beatles number. I like it because it's in a minor key, because Bill likes it as well. You say you will love me if I have to go. Or you'll be thinking of me, but somehow I will know. Someday when I'm lonely, wishing you weren't so far away, then I will remember the things we said today. You say you'll be mine, girl, till the end of time. But these days such a kind girl seems so hard to find. Someday when we're dreaming deep in love, not a lot to say, then we will remember the things we said today. Me, I'm just a lucky guy. I love to hear you say that love is love, and though we may be blind, love is here to stay, and that's enough to make you mine, girl. Be the only one. Be me all the time, girl. We'll go on and on. Someday when we're dreaming deep in love, not a lot to say, then we will remember the things we said today. You say I'm a lucky guy. I love to hear you say that love is love, and though we may be blind, love is here to stay, and that's enough to make you mine, girl. Be the only one. Love me all the time, girl. We'll go on and on. Someday when we're dreaming deep in love, not a lot to say, then I will remember the things we said today. Thank you. We hadn't done that in about 5 years. We put together a Beatles forum at UVA Wise for a special thing, and Richie, Mark, Bill, and I got together, and we learned about 20 acoustic Beatles numbers, and that was one of them, and I liked that one because it's written in a minor key. Okay, let me see. Oh, by the way, this is going to feature Buddy on flugelhorn. if you notice me looking down here at lyrics, I'm 69 years old. So, you know, I can't remember all this stuff. And I have a hard time reading it anyway. So you should pity me. Thank you. This is Buddy. He's going to do a little thing called Misty. Yeah, I don't play first trumpet anymore. No. This is something we kind of threw in. It was kind of my last minute observation. We've honored Ben tonight, but we really lost recently one of the most iconic figures of all in Southwest Virginia, and that's Papa Joe Smitty. And Papa Joe's in D flat as well. So anyway, I had that on my mind, and I thought, what could we do musically to honor Papa Joe? You know, he was a band director in Lee County. He was Dave Tipton's first band director. He was quite fond of my father. He called him Deacon, and I have no idea why. And the last time I was able to see him, Donnie Sora put together, we had a little brass Christmas carol thing, and we went around to different places, including the Laurels, where he was. And we had a picture, and he loved it. And he told us, he said, and he knew our names. You know, he said, Ron, he said, that's so pretty. He said, oh, I just love to hear that. Oh, it's so good. And told Donnie that. So we got a picture together. That's a very emotional moment for me because he was the chancellor at the college when I graduated in 1970, and I just had so many relationships with him and just so much respect for him. In his honor, please, let's give him a round of applause. And he better not be laughing at me from heaven. I'm going to try to play valve trombone on that. just a bowl of butter beans. Pass the cornbread if you please. You know, I don't want no collard greens, no, no, just a bowl of them good old butter beans. I see that lady over there with the curlers in her hair. No, she's not pregnant as she seems. Her belly is full of them good old butter beans. Let's take this sucker home. Thank you. This may amaze you, but we didn't practice that one. Mark says it amazes him too. Okay, Bud and I are going to do a little thing called The Girl from Ipanema. What'd you call it last 2 years ago? The Girl from Noxzema, right? Yeah, okay. I'm going to do on flugelhorn. Bud's going to, he's a flautist. He's one of the floutingest boys I ever knew. Ready? goodness that's over. We skipped one. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't look at my cheat sheet. We're going to call Bill Thompson up to do this next number. It's by Van Morrison. We'll go ahead and send this one out to the sick and the shut-in. It's called Brown Eyed Girl. That's a joke, you know. Oh, wait a minute. I got to play trumpet. I'm sorry. Sorry. I forgot. You know, let's kick it out. Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, where we go, days when the rains came down in the hollow, playing a new game, laughing and running, hey, hey, skipping and jumping in the misty fog with you. Oh, our heart went out to you, brown-eyed girl. You're my brown-eyed girl. Well, whatever happened to Tuesdays and so slow? Gone down the old mine with a transistor radio, standing in the sunlight laughing, riding high the rainbow's wall, slipping and a sliding all along the waterfall with you, my brown-eyed girl. You're my brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-ti-da? Everybody can sing that with me. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-ti-da, la-ti-da. So hard to find my way. Oh my, how you've grown. Saw you just the other day. Now, my, how you have grown. Can't remember back that long. Sometimes I'm overcome thinking about it. Making love in the green grass behind the stadium with you, my brown-eyed girl. My brown-eyed girl. Do you remember when we used to sing sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-ti-da, just like that now. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-ti-da, sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-ti-da. Sha la 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 ti da, la ti da.
Bill Thompson. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the work that Bill and his wife Jan do on the 9 O'Clock Club for how many years? 22. 22. I think all of us have been involved. You've been in every one of them. Every one. Okay. I came out of retirement and I've done 5 or 6, but it's amazing. If you've never seen a 9 O'Clock Club, buddy, how many have you done? 15. Anybody? Huh? Wes?
Jim, all of us. I'm on 6 or 7. Everybody.
I'm 6. Anyway, they're all great. We just did Mary Poppins, and you're going to do something else next year to be determined. Maybe, never know. Anyway, Jan was the Citizen of the Year, and you can tell why, and this guy deserves half of it. So give him a hand. What? Naked show. Okay. That'll be the last one. Yeah. Kansas City, gonna get my baby back home. Well, Kansas City, baby, Kansas City, I'm home. It's been a long, long time since my baby's been gone. Kansas City, one time. Kansas City, one time. It's just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Modulate. Take a boat and I might take a train. If I gotta walk, I'm gonna get there just the same. Go to Kansas City one time. Just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One out. Just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. One more. Go to Kansas City, baby. Yeah, Kansas City one time. Oh, yeah. We think we've reached the witching hour, and so you folks have been very nice. I hope you've had a good time. Thanks. This is a number that Richie and I really love. Richie's not here, but Jim is, and I think Jim and I can do it just fine, right? Sure. Yeah, you got a music degree. I got nothing. I have no excuse. Anyway, it's a number that we've been doing for a while. It's called US 23. Yeah. If you ever plan to motor west, travel my way, that's the highway, that's the best. Get your kicks on Route 66. Well, it winds from Chicago to LA, more than 2,000 miles all the way. Get your kicks, baby, on Route 66. Well, it goes to St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri. Oklahoma City is mighty pretty, you'll see. Amarillo, Gala, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this kindly tip? When you take that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. Take us for a ride, buddy. Shoot ba boo ba boo ba 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 yo do ba do dee do ba do da. Hey, shoo ba doo ba doo, shee ba doo 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 da ba doo da da doo da. Well, it goes St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri, Oklahoma City is mighty pretty. You'll see Amarillo, Gallup, New Mexico, Flagstaff, Arizona. Don't forget Winona, Kingman, Boston, San Bernardino. Won't you get hip to this kind of tip? When you take that California trip, get your kicks on Route 66. Get your kicks on Route 66. Get your kicks on Route and didn't do 66. Thank these guys, all these guys. Ben Allen. Okay, thanks everyone. Listen, if you're driving home tonight, please use a car. Thank you.